welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating case study in modern independent media, The Doug Rice Show. Now, we already know how independent commentators are, carving out these highly specific lanes in the digital age. But today, we're strictly looking at the source material to see the actual mechanics of how this specific show constructs its arguments and ultimately captures its audience. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're going to look at how all the pieces fit together. Right out of the gate, the platform's bold tagline is fully woke. 2 words, 1 exclamation point. It literally doesn't get much more direct than that. This immediately sets the stage for what we're looking at today, an objective, analytical look at a platform that promises provocative, completely unfiltered discussions. By putting its mission statement right up front and embracing such a highly charged cultural term, the show signals exactly the kind of audience it wants to reach and the unapologetic conversations it intends to spark. It's a masterclass in direct digital branding, for sure. Okay, let's dive into this. When you strip away the branding, what exactly is the DNA of this platform? Well, looking at the source material, The Doug Rice Show is fundamentally a podcast and commentary platform, but its intense focus areas are what truly define it. We're talking political corruption, racial inequities, historical injustices, and contemporary social issues. This isn't your lighthearted pop culture podcast. It actively tackles the heavy, complex, and divisive issues dominating our news cycles, aims to provide a dedicated, unfiltered space for these specific, high-stakes topics. Section 2. The Voice. Doug Rice. To truly understand the platform and its impact, you absolutely have to understand the specific lens through which all of this content is filtered. The show is hosted by Doug Rice, a Black American commentator. The platform explicitly positions him and the show itself as a crucial, necessary voice for marginalized perspectives. In the landscape of modern digital media, the identity and background of the host often serve as the very foundation of the show's authority and its appeal to listeners. Rice uses his platform to amplify viewpoints that he argues are frequently sidelined, watered down, or just completely ignored by traditional mainstream media outlets. Now, Rice relies on a very specific commentary style, bridging the gap. On one side, you have historical civil rights struggles. On the other, modern figures and today's swirling controversies. Rice's method is to actively connect these 2 dots for his audience. He doesn't treat history as something dead and stuck in a textbook. Actually, scratch that. It's more like he treats it as the direct prequel to whatever is happening in the news today. It's a really powerful rhetorical approach designed to give deep historical weight to current events. Okay, Section 3, Critiques and Core Themes. And this brilliantly illustrates the specific institutions the show targets. It actively and frequently critiques institutional biases across 3 major pillars of American society: the media, law enforcement, and politics. Now, looking at this impartially as researchers of media, it's crystal clear that the show's entire architecture is built on examining how these 3 massive institutions operate, where they fail, and how those systemic failures disproportionately impact marginalized communities. These are massive structural critiques that the host returns to time and time again. Underpinning all of those critiques are the show's core ideological themes. The source material outlines these very clearly for us: Black autonomy, systemic racism, and what the show describes as America's moral decline. These aren't just passing conversational topics, folks. They are the structural pillars of Rice's commentary. Every critique of a specific politician or, say, a local police department is typically anchored right back to one of these 3 massive concepts. And again, our goal here today isn't to validate or invalidate these political claims, but to understand that these specific themes are literally the engine running the entire platform. Moving on to Section 4, Inside the Latest Episodes. So we've talked extensively about the theory, the host, and the themes, but what does this look like in practice? That is the absolutely crucial question for a focused learner. How do heavy concepts like systemic racism, moral decline, and institutional bias actually translate into content that someone clicks on, listens to, and shares? Well, to answer that, let's take a look at the actual post data published on January 31st, 2026. Here is the first batch of recent post titles from that date. We see clearly now. They act as if, and the hollowing out of American history. Notice the urgent, declarative tone and the heavy use of all capital letters? Yeah, that is not accidental. It's designed to grab your attention immediately in a crowded social media feed. A title like The Hollowing Out of American History directly ties back to that exact strategy we saw earlier, connecting the past to present-day controversies and challenging how history is being actively taught or remembered today. And here are the remaining titles from that exact same published date: Protecting the Autonomy of Black People and Dear Donald Trump. These two titles perfectly encapsulate the show's core mission. You have a direct, undeniable reference to one of their stated core themes, Black autonomy, followed immediately by a highly specific, targeted address to a major, polarizing political figure. It's a textbook example of how independent media uses direct, provocative framing to engage its specific audience without relying on the traditional filters of a legacy newsroom. Finally, Section 5, challenging the mainstream. So, how do all of these elements, the host, the themes, the episode framing, come together to achieve the platform's ultimate stated objective? Well, the crucial point is that The Doug Rice Show operates on a very distinct three-step methodology. Step 1, blend opinion pieces seamlessly with the news of the day. Step 2, issue direct calls to action to the audience. This is key. It's not just about passive listening, it's about mobilizing the listeners to actually do something. And step 3, challenge mainstream narratives. By combining incredibly strong opinions with actionable steps, the platform actively pushes back against the dominant narratives you might hear on standard network television, successfully creating an entirely alternative space for discourse. Which leads us to a final question to reflect on today. How do independent platforms like this reshape our understanding of mainstream history and modern discourse? When you have passionate creators completely bypassing traditional gatekeepers to deliver unfiltered, deeply perspective driven content, it fractures the single mainstream narrative into countless different realities. Whether you agree with the specific political commentary of The Doug Rice Show or not, its existence and its undeniable ability to directly reach an audience fundamentally changes how we as a society process information, debate our history, and ultimately shape our future. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the fascinating media landscape around you, and I'll catch you next time.